Welcome to this week's podcast. I brought on Vikram Deol. Vikram, welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Vikram, give us a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
Um, that's a great question. I'm a recovering real estate agent. I was living in Seattle for the last 7 years. And last year, I started traveling with Tony Robbins as a platinum partner and doing all of his courses and meeting a lot of people. And there was always a draw for me to do something else. I never was excited to say I was a real estate agent. And I think that's a sign that you're not following your passion. I felt like it was more of a job or a career than a passion of mine.
Mm.
And in January of this year, I just was talking to one of my coaches, and he said, "What's your biggest struggle for the year to get more listings?" And I said, "I don't know if you're the right person to talk to, but I don't think I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I can't imagine. I just, not that it's bad, but it just wasn't for me." And I packed up my stuff, and in January I left, and I kind of went on a soul searching mission, which I'm still very much so in the middle of. I don't think I'll ever be done with that. And I moved back to Bakersfield for in between travel. And I mean, I really lived in like Airbnbs and hotels from January till about August. And then August, I said, I need to kind of have somewhat of a home base. And I didn't really want to put roots down anywhere. So I moved into my parents' house for a couple of weeks. And I decided that at that point, there was a calling for me to be back there. I felt this special need. And I'm opening up Osteo Strong locations in Bakersfield, California. And that's where I'm going to be at for probably the next 6 to 12 months. My lease is for 6 months in my new place. So I'm hoping it's 6 months, but who knows? We'll see where the road takes me.
We have a bit of a similar background. I also went on my own. I called it kind of just after ending my engagement, my own journey and Tony Robbins events, but solo travel and again living in Airbnbs and renting my place out. And I had a stint with my parents. And anyway, I get it. But for you to up and quit this real estate, which I imagine you were pretty successful, was it an intuitive nudge or what happened that you were like, this isn't it?
There's a lot of things that happened. I mean, wow, where do we start? Fuck. Okay. Well, I think the straw that broke the camel's back was I hired this gal, and she started embezzling money from my company. Um, she was highly sought after, appeared to be highly sought after, and knew who she was. Our company's owners knew who she was, and I'm not quite sure what was going on in her personal life, but she was embezzling money. I got tired of hiring people. I let go of a really good person that was very trustworthy and honest. And just something in my heart was like, there's something wrong here. Like, there's just something not right. And for a couple of years, I said I wanted to leave Seattle, get back to California, be closer to family, and, just get back to kind of the sunshine and everything that Seattle didn't have for me there. And I just never had the courage to get up and leave because I was making money. And so in my culture, and I think in a lot of cultures in the Western society, you base everything off the dollar bills.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, you know what, it's not going to get any easier. I didn't fill her position. There was something in me that said, don't fill this position. I didn't have the energy to fill it. I didn't want to fill it. I was tired. I was burned out. I felt empty inside. I was alone. I was scared. I was fearful. I was living a persona, this image that I'd created that I didn't really feel like was authentic to myself. And I just said, let's go. And I just packed up. I mean, literally, I got off the phone with my coach and tears and just gratitude that he's such an amazing human being. And I packed up and went to Home Depot with my dog and grabbed some boxes, and $250 later started packing. That was the start of my journey.
Can you maybe share a little bit more about this? Because I feel, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but my
Totally wrong.
perception, darn it, my perception is that men aren't always very in tune with their intuition. They're always living logically, analytically. So how were you able to shut off the fear and the thoughts and embrace this nudge?
I was real lucky growing up to have a mom that kind of confided a lot of stuff in me, and I'm really close to my mom, and I'm really close to my mom's mom. My dad's mom lives with us, so I've had a lot of women around me, but my mom and my mom's mom were really, I think, super powerful for the courage that they faced and for being able to step up to people. I remember my mom telling me a story that when she was a kid, some kid was bullying her and pulling on her pigtails, and she just gave him a face full of sand. And the teacher called, or the principal called and said, "You did this and that, da 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 da." The other kid, because he, went to the principal crying or somewhere, and she went home, and her dad said, "What happened?" And she told him, and I could be mistaken on it, but this is out of memory from many years ago. But she went home and told him what happened, and my grandpa was a very strong man, and he said, "Good, don't let anybody pick on you." And my mom's always been the quiet, strong type, I think, for me. And she taught me a lot, and I'm very close with her. We still talk very candidly and openly. I think there's a lot of things she wish I would keep to myself. But we speak really openly, um, and my grandma too, she's very close to me, and we're very close to each other, and I think that's helped me. But I've always lived in my head. It was always logic based. And I think it's when I really started to meditate and I started to go to the Tony events. I went to as a platinum partner, I got to go to a relationship event in October, actually right around this time last year. And that's when I started to realize, like, holy crap, money isn't really true happiness. The more you have of it, the doesn't guarantee. I mean, I was in a room with, billionaires and people who barely scraped together enough pennies to get into this room and fly to this event and be there. And I realized that it wasn't the money that made the happiness. It was the connection to something else. I didn't know what that something else is at the time, and I'm still not searching. I know where it's at, and I know how to get to it now. I think the meditation, and I think really understanding that it's okay to cry. I mean, my dad cries during movies, but that's really the only time he shows a lot of emotion. There are other times where he shows emotion, but he's very logical. He's very in his head. He's a physician, so he has to be. My brothers are a younger brother. He's a millennial. He's probably the least in his head, but my older brother is very in his head. And I realized that being in your head, as Tony Robbins says, I'll probably quote him a few times, but if you're in your head, you're dead. And it didn't really sink in until probably a couple of months ago. But if you're in your head, you're dead. And the more we can get from here to here, the heart space, the more we can enjoy. I turned on the TV yesterday. Very rarely do I watch TV anymore. And I think it was The Voice or one of those shows. And one of the women said to this young girl, she says, "I really want to work with you because I feel like you're really in your head. You're thinking about every note. You're thinking about everything you're saying." She said, "If we can get you from here to here, you'll really just open up." Because I remember when I was younger, I was in my head. And I'm like, that's kind of what the Western culture, I think, not to throw the Western culture under the bus, but I think that the Western culture is very much so in their head. They think about everything. We think about Instagram. We think about being perfect. I kind of forgot about our podcast this morning. I'm like, oh shit, my hair's messed up. Let me just throw some water in it, and then, I threw some water in it and I was like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, I'm not going to throw on a collared shirt. Like I don't need to dress up to impress people. I need to just be me to be me. And the people who like me will like me. And the people that don't. But we want to get the people who don't like us to like us instead of just embracing the people that do love us already, because we're not going to be everything to everybody because everybody's on their own journey.
Right. And what we've talked about previously, and I think what you're kind of hinting at, is getting back to your core. So removing the masks and these fronts and the walls that everybody creates. But can you talk more about, and I think you've figured it out, but what does it mean to get back to your core? What does it mean to be masculine?
That's so funny. I got into a debate with somebody a couple of days ago. We were out having a couple of fermented grape juices, and we started talking at the bar, and it's me and one of my buddies who's also a platinum partner. So he's very into his feminine side, and now he's getting more into his masculine side. He grew up with his mom, and great human being, and just genuine heart. I mean, he's definitely there, but we tend to talk a lot about masculine energy and feminine energy. Not masculinity, like you're a man, or femininity because you're a woman, but masculine and feminine energy. And we're talking at the bar, and somebody next to us got really upset and was just really upset at the fact that I used the term feminine energy. I don't know if my internet connection's still good or not. Can you hear me? Okay. And so masculine energy and feminine energy are things that we've gotten away from because everybody wants this notion of equality. And I'm all about equality. I think we should all be equal, but there are certain traits that men have and there's certain traits that women have. And I go back to the movie, I think it was Kindergarten Cop, where the girl goes, boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. And guess what? That's never going to change. I mean, I guess medicine can make that different, but you know, we're born a certain way and we are who we are. And masculine energy is about being a provider. It's about protecting the homestead. It's about trying to give to the feminine energy something that makes the masculine feel great. And the feminine energy is so powerful. It's so powerful. And I don't know if people really realize how powerful that is, because a masculine energy will do anything for the feminine energy, and vice versa. The feminine energy will do anything for the masculine energy. And that's why you get this beautiful bond. And that's why when you get attracted to somebody, you get attracted to somebody because they're very feminine or very masculine based off of who you are. And it's not about being masculine, like, I'm the man and I'm going to whoop some ass and I'm going to control you and, you know, beating your chest. It's about protecting your homestead. It's protecting the feminine energy. And it's not about squashing that energy. It's about keeping it at an elevated source. And you do everything in your power to keep that feminine energy feminine. And that doesn't mean that a feminine energy can't go out into the world and kick ass, take names, and whoop ass. It just means that when you come back to your masculine energy, you can let it all go. You don't have to hold up the world anymore. Like, that's what the masculine energy will do. They will protect you from everything out there. They will be your shield. And you, as the feminine energy, feeds the masculine.
And I think what we could touch on is, so if people have never heard of this or have no idea what we're talking about, we'll just give a very high level overview that at our core, maybe at your core, you're very likely a masculine energy. And at my core, I'm feminine. But there are times when we're going to waver, and you have to, in
Right.
life experiences, in relationships. You know, at times, if you're going through something and maybe you're crying, and that may be, quote, more feminine. And at that point, maybe I would embrace you and just want to, and that might be, quote, masculine. So I think just to touch on that.
Yeah, you're never yin or yang. I mean, you're always bouncing back and forth depending on what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with the masculine being feminine or feminine being masculine. But if that's not who you are, then that causes conflict in the long term. So, you know, what I've read in my studies and what I've heard, so this isn't stuff that I'm pulling out of my head. It's stuff that I've read and heard and seen, and actually seen, you know, a lot of case studies at the relationship event with very nice couples at the surface, but really fucked up in the inside. And these are people who I looked up to and I admired because of their business acumen and how nice they were to me and how open and loving and caring. And then all of a sudden you peel back the onion layers and you're like, holy shit, you guys are about to explode and kill each other. And what happens is when the masculine gets pushed into a corner, it turns feminine. When the feminine gets pushed into a corner, it doesn't feel like the masculine stepping up, it turns masculine. And if you don't counterbalance that, eventually the polarity that you had between the masculine and the feminine will lose, because the masculine is attracted to the feminine is attracted to the masculine. And if you get somebody who was once masculine and has been emasculated over time by the feminine energy, then the feminine becomes masculine, the masculine becomes feminine, and now you're crossing. And so you can be masculine. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's times where I want my partner to be masculine and like, yo, let's go. Get your shit together. You need to get up and move. Like, you got stuff to do. You got a big why. You got a big mission in life. You got a big purpose. You need to get up and go. And then there's other times where I'm just like, I want that feminine dance. You know, the feminine energy is just the flow. It's like water. It's beautiful. It's just, you know, a very feminine energy. Just, it's kind of like an ocean, just comes and goes. And it's just so powerful in its beauty. And you just want to be around it and just dance. And so that's why, you know, if I've read a couple of Alison Armstrong books and David Dieta books. And she has an example. She says, have you ever just sat by your man on the couch and he's like completely ignoring you? You feel like he's ignoring you, but he just looks so happy. He's watching football or watching the news, and you're just sitting there like, I want to talk. And he's like, I'm so content because he's got the feminine energy, or the masculine has that feminine energy present right next to the masculine. And I'm using him and her because that was what the example of the book was. And you're just happy. Like, I can go on a road trip and I can have my girl next to me and I don't have to say a word. Like, I can just be driving, enjoying, and I'll be totally tuned into the road, not even paying attention to the fact that like she's talking about something. And she's like, are you paying attention to me? And I'm like, no, not even trying to pretend like I am. But just having that feminine energy feeds me. And we don't have to treat each other the same way. Like, I'm not going to treat my lady like I treat my boys. You know, there'll be times where we joke around, but I don't want a girl who's just like the guys. Like, I want a girl who's a girl. Like, I want a feminine energy. And I think the women that are attracted to me are feminine, that want a masculine energy. They want to feel protected. They want to know that I'm going to hold the door open for them. They appreciate those things, and that doesn't make them any less of a human. It just makes them in tune with themselves, and it allows me to be a man. It allows them to be a woman, and it allows us to have something special because I know I get to provide, and masculine energies want to provide, and it allows her to let me be the provider without taking anything away from her. And I want anybody around me to be very successful. I mean, I don't want anybody to be any less than what they want. And, you know, when we were talking, and, you know, I said, I would love nothing more if my wife wanted to stay home and take care of the kids. If we're financially capable of doing that, which, I mean, we will be, I will want her to take care of the children. I don't want to hire out my children's education to somebody who I don't know, to a stranger. I don't mind having help in the house. I mean, running a household is insane in 2018. But I'd love for my partner to take care of the children if that's what she wanted to do. Not because she's not capable of running a corporation, but to me, my biggest job is to make sure that our family goes to the next level and exceeds where we're at in some form. It doesn't have to be financial, but just exceeds what they're capable of doing in some form.
What have you done then to step back into your masculine energy so that you are attracting that femininity that you want?
Stop listening to the fucking bullshit out there. Get your balls back, man. Like, fucking A, dude. Like, you don't have to be scared. Like, happy wife, happy life. Whoever said that statement, I don't think they said it in a wrong tone. I just don't think they were very strong. And I questioned to see how happy their wife really was. Because if you have somebody who just walks all over you, you ain't going to be happy in the long term. I've been married. We weren't very happy. We started out, it was great, but after a while, she didn't trust in me or something. I don't know what it is, to take care of the household, or she wanted to control, or maybe it was her upbringing. I don't know, but we had two masculine energies in the house. And let me tell you, that was like a firecracker.
Yeah.
And go for it.
I was just going to say, I want to touch on that quote because that's something that it has actually always bothered me, even as a female, the happy wife, happy life, because I take that as Am I really that big of a bitch that you have to cower down and just say yes? I mean, I need you to be your own person too. So I've never liked that saying.
Better be careful saying that when you post this podcast. I mean, you might get some hate now for that one.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, I think it's a cop out, and I think it's an easy way for people to not have to face some of the hard times, because I don't know any couples that the man or the masculine bows down and says, I'm just going to do whatever you want, that's truly happy. I've yet to meet that couple where they're truly happy that that's the way that it is, because that's not who they are.
Right.
If they like that, that's fine. That's great. You know, there are masculine females and there's feminine men. That's not a problem. But if you're a masculine at your core and you want to be the provider and you are not able to do that, it sucks. It sucks as a man to not feel like, because in today's day and age, you know, a lot of the things that we used to be able to do, you know, provide for the family, AKA bring home the bacon, we're not needed for that anymore. I mean, women are capable. They've always been capable of providing. And I mean, they've done so much more to help the society than they've been given credit for, or they take credit for. But the pendulum is way too far on one side, and we just need to get back into the balance, because I talk to a lot of women who are like, wow, I'm so glad you told me to just stop talking about this nonsense. Like, I wish my man would tell me to stop talking sometimes. Like, I'm like, well, why don't you just shut up? Like, not in a bad way, but like, just stop crushing, because as a masculine human being, you will fall back into your feminine, because you can't have, you want to keep the peace at some point. And so there's a conversation that needs to be had where men need to learn how to talk to themselves, women need to learn how to talk to themselves, and men and women both need to learn how to talk to each other, so that we're not ignoring the other person. But there's a lot of things, I mean, there's a lot of things that we do because of the way we are made genetically, and that's never going to change. You know, we're just never going to change how we're genetically made up. Men are never going to give birth to women. If they do, that's going to be one painful process. And that's just what it is. So we just have to realize that we are different, but with our differences is what becomes so great, because that's what makes this world a beautiful place, is that we all have unique fingerprints and retinas, and we're all unique. There's not a single person in this world who's built exactly the same as you. And there's 7.456 billion people, and we all have different fingerprints. We all have different eyeballs. So let's stop pretending like we're exactly the same, and let's start embracing the differences for the beauty that they are.
I have a two-part kind of final question for you on that then. Do you have steps or something you can share with the men that how they can bring this back, how they can step back into their masculinity?
Step up. I mean, you know how to do it. It's in your soul. It's in your body. It's in your heart. You know, when you're backing down and you feel like you shouldn't be doing it, you have to learn. You have to recreate that inside of you, that energy inside of you, so that you can step up. Read David Detta, The Way of the Superior Man. Read Alison Armstrong, Keys to the Kingdom, The Queen's Code. There's podcasts out there that talk about masculine and feminine energy. They talk about men being men. I was a part of a workout group called F3, and it was a group of Marines or ex-Army guys that just started this workout because they wanted to help men become leaders in their society, in their community. And all of a sudden it got a huge national following. And I was doing it in Seattle, and it's just men getting together, working out in the morning, sharing gratitudes, sharing what they're happy for, sharing their wins, sharing their losses, being men outside in nature, rain or shine, snow or heat. They would work out together. But it's allowing men to share how to be leaders in the community and to be leaders in their households. And so getting out into groups where, there's a lot of women's groups, because, women have been, what's the right word? they've been pushed down for so many years, but that's no longer the case. Like, I don't know any of my friends who are like, yeah, let's put these women in a box and control them. I've never heard that from any one of my guy friends. I don't care how big, how strong they are, how rich, how poor they are. They're always like, dude, we want our wife to shine. Like, we want to put her on the pedestal. We want to make her, we want to do whatever we can to provide for her, but we also want her to do what she wants. So if she wants to do anything, so that's a big thing. I think women also need to support women more. If a woman wants to go out and be in the corporate world and you want to be at home with your children because you're capable of doing that and that's your highest purpose at the moment, you shouldn't talk bad about the woman in the corporate world. And the woman at the corporate world shouldn't talk bad about the woman who wants to be at home with the children. They're both such important jobs. We wouldn't be here today if somebody didn't take care of us, whether that's a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. So to me, I think educating yourself, listening to some podcasts, me and one of my buddies are actually thinking of doing some retreats for men and for women that talk about these topics, and bringing in the perspective to men and bringing the perspective to women and how we feel when these things happen. And then bringing in other women who, we're not trying to put down women. We're just trying to educate and raise awareness of how men feel. And same thing, like to the guys, like, work out, work out, go to the gym, do guy things, burp, belch, fart every now and then. Like, just be a dude sometimes. Like, it's okay to just be a dude. We don't have to be perfect. Like, we don't have to be PG. Not everybody's fucking perfect. Like, fuck it. Who cares? Like, let go of all this stuff. And we're really scared. I think men are really scared to do things right now because we don't want to do something and then later it comes back like we're assholes or we're actually really fearful. I hired an employee. I gave her a hug and everybody's like, you touched her? I'm like, dude, we had like an amazing conversation. I was like super into this person, like as a human being, and I'm a hugger. Like, Tony makes you hug like 1,000 times in a seminar. Like, at the end of it, I gave her a hug. I didn't even think about it. It wasn't sexual. It's just like two people connecting, and we don't touch in like a loving way enough. Yeah. Babies die if you don't touch them. So just, kind of letting go of those norms that have become norms and getting back to just being in the heart space.
Well, and I think the key to everything you're saying is that you talked about the pendulum, but finding that balance, finding that sweet spot of teetering on both. And from my perspective, I want to ask you, what can women do to help encourage men stepping up?
Read Alison Armstrong's The Keys to the Kingdom and the Queen's Code. And read it not to judge yourself, not to hate everything that she's saying, not to call her a supporter of men, not to call her a anything, but read her book to just understand and really listen before you speak. It's been a very powerful thing for me lately. Listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, but really read the book. They're really easy reads. I mean, they're hard reads because they're going to challenge a lot of people. But just read those books and try to be open with yourself and try to accept yourself and just think about, when the examples are given or, go and do this homework or go and do that homework and really appreciate. You don't have to change. That's a great thing about educating yourself. You don't have to change. If you're like, this is bullshit and these people are stupid, I'm never going to be like that. But just read the books. I mean, they're like 200 pages each. They're big fonts, lots of spaces, very simple English to read. I'm not very smart. I can read them. And just read them and get through the novels. And I mean, they're story-like books, so they're not hard to read. You don't have to Google words. I mean, it's very simple for a guy like me to read them. And then just sit with that for a minute and then just do the exercises and see how your relationships with other people change. Because again, I've never met a woman who says, I want to crush my man on purpose. There's situations that come across where things happen and people are hurt and, think that's a different story. But I've never met a woman yet that's like, I want to just grind him into the ground every day and just show him who's boss because I'm the boss, to hurt him. It was, So men and women inherently want happiness and solid relationships and connection and love and a great family. And I think if that book is read, I mean, again, and ask your man, like, how do you feel when this happens? Like, if I say this to you, how does it feel? And then listen to your girlfriends. Like when you say something about your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or I'm sorry, your man to one of your girlfriends, is she supporting you, or does she say, well, maybe you're being a little hard? Or if you say, like, man, he doesn't listen to me and he just always ignores me, and she's like, yeah, he's a jerk, I can't believe he doesn't do that. Is that the support you need, or is that the support that's given because that's a cultural norm?
Mm.
Just sit with these things like you would sit and analyze a business opportunity. Sit and analyze your own personal communication, because men are not hairy women and women are not just hairless men. So we have to learn how to communicate with each other, and it's not fair for men to have to do everything. It's not fair for women to have to do everything. We both just need to step up and be nicer to each other and understand from the other side.
Great advice. I want to wrap this up. On the end of each of my podcasts, I like to do rapid fire questions. So I just have quick 3 questions for you, and whatever comes to mind, go with it.
Okay.
What is a quote or motto you live by?
Ooh, great quote that from Maya Angelou that's been coming up over and over again. And it's, people won't remember what you said. People won't remember what you did. People will remember how you made them feel.
Yes. That's a phenomenal one. You've listed so many books today that you highly recommend, but maybe is there one, and not even on this topic, is there one book that really stands out that is your go-to that you'd like to share?
Oh, I mean, my old school favorites, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. There's a lot of aspects in there that talk about your financial state, but a lot of things that talk about connecting spiritually to the other side. And remember, if you can think it, you can achieve it. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. Everything around us started with somebody thinking about doing something and then finding out the way after they find out their why, how to make it happen. There's a chopper literally flying like right over us. I mean, Think and Grow Rich is always a great, solid book to have in your library.
Yes, I've read it. I totally agree. All right, final question. If there's something you could do in today's world the old-fashioned way, what would it be?
There's something I could do in today's world the old-fashioned way. What would it be? I don't know. That's a great question. I guess I'm a big fan of talking to people on the phone versus texting. FaceTime's cool and all, but I guess that's kind of like my old-fashioned thing. I still like to hold the door open for people. I still like to, just show that kind of. I don't always stand up when a person leaves and comes to the table. I've been doing that lately, and it's really nice. People really appreciate it. Makes me feel nice too. It makes me feel good. But I think picking up the phone and having more communication instead of texting it's a really nice thing to do. That's AKA old fashioned.
I totally agree. It's the small things that really add up to be the big things.
Yeah, relationships never end because, I mean, they do, but relationships typically get to a point that they end because of one big thing, but it's typically a lot of small things that are ignored along the way that make one big thing finally happen.
Yeah.
And if you reverse engineer that really big event and you say, what was my part in that happening? Why did that happen? Instead of blaming the person for doing what they did. Because eventually, I was talking to a mentor yesterday, and he said, we're all given a tool chest and we all have certain tools in the tool chest. Some people have really shitty tools. Some people don't know how to use the tools, and some people have no tools because they're scattered all over the freeway. And so if you just appreciate everybody for where they're at in life, because they're all on their own journey, then you'll have a lot more gratitude towards everything around you.
That is a great note to end on. Vikram, thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode.
Thanks, Heather.